Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's live session. We are already at the 4th week, and this week is the last week in our training on sustainable biodiversity management. This week, we'll be looking at how to promote biodiversity, how to improve the biodiversity, cultivation practices on biodiversity, and the likes. And then we call it a good training for the past 4 weeks. So let me quickly run through the agenda for today. Today we'll welcome everybody, and then we'll have topics on sequence 1, which is layouts that promotes biodiversity. What are the layouts? What are the types of layouts that you can do that will promote biodiversity? Then sequence 2 is how to improve domesticated biodiversity on the farm. Remember that in the previous weeks, we have talked about domesticated biodiversity and wild biodiversity. So how do you improve domesticated biodiversity? The way you do this is different from the way you do wild biodiversity. Then sequence 3 is how to improve wild biodiversity on the farm. So how do you improve wild biodiversity on the farm? So these are different ways of doing this. Then we'll go on break, and when we come back, it's going to be a lot of question and answer. We're going to do a lot of interaction and a lot of explanation from the different ways at which we. So then after that, we're going to look at navigate through module 4. In module 4, we're going to explain the activities that you're supposed to do for this week, and also look at those activities that we have not done in week 1, week 2, week 3, because by Friday, our certificate is supposed to be out. And when the certificates are out, it's those who have been able to achieve 60% of the workload that is going to that will be able to release the certificate. So we're going to, like this week, be on the neck of everybody so that we can finish, and then we can be able to get our certificate on Friday. So we're hoping that everyone, even those who are not online, will be able to follow through and be able to finish the workload. That's important. Your assignment is very important. Your mini quiz is very important, and your test is very important. So if you're able to do these 3 work activities, you are able to go for every. So permit me to unshare my screen, and then we'll do an ice break. So our question for today is, what's the best piece of advice that you have ever been given? So Matthew, over to you. What is the best piece of advice? Hello, Matthew. Hello, Matthew. David, are you there?
Yes,
what's
I am.
What's the best piece of advice you have ever been given?
The best piece of advice I've ever received, actually, I read it in a book. There's this book by the name of Poor Dad, Rich Dad. Got some concept on the way we figure out education and the real purpose of education in a person's life. Yeah, I think that's the very best and also very practical advice I can say I've ever received.
Good.
Yeah.
Matthew, thank you. Matthew, are you there? Mamo, welcome on board today. Good to have you on board today. What's the best piece of advice you have ever been given?
taking care of the environment.
Really? So how does that resonate with you? If that's the best advice you have been given?
Well, I have seen the effect of biodegradation degradation on the environment, on farms, on previously productive farms that have been not taken care of through the use of excessive use of simple things like irrigation, fertilizer application, and pesticide use or misuse.
Okay. Thank you. That's very good. And so on this note, I unshare my screen and then I hand over to Ayo. Over to you, Ayo.
All right, allow me. Thank you very much. I want to welcome everyone again. I want to believe that you have a wonderful weekend. Also believe you rested very well, because it is becoming very important to rest during this period. We understand that the schedule is tight, so you require to rest very well. So please permit me to share my screen. While I share my screen, we are on the last lap of this training session, just like Olawumi said, and we'll just be having 90 minutes today. It might not be up to 90 minutes because we're starting a little bit behind schedule while we're waiting for some of you. And today we're on module 4, which we're going to finish on Thursday. So we'll be discussing cultivation practices that promote biodiversity. We've been able to discuss those practices that impair biodiversity in our environments, on the farm, and that affects the global stage, as the case may be. And now we want to look at those things we are supposed to be doing in order for biodiversity to be promoted. Those things that make our farm, our activities to be biodiversity smart. Those things that we should engage in that will make us biodiversity compliant in order for the future generation to be okay, in order for us even to stay healthy on this planet Earth. So I'll move to the next slide. Please permit me, I may not be able to put up this full screen. So today, at the end of the module, participants will be able to know the cultural developments and practices that promote biodiversity. You also be able to know how to ensure or improve domestic biodiversity on your various farms, in which you may have to include the spatial planning, the livestock, crop, and the mutual association and temporal planning. We discussed spatial scale biodiversity and temporal scale biodiversity 2 weeks ago. So we'll be discussing how to improve on them, on how to get them applied. And 3, we'll be able to know how to ensure or improve wild biodiversity, benefits of edges, grooves, wetlands, grassy strips. And then we will also know how to reduce the impact of fertilizers and pesticides on biodiversity. We will know what damage all of these things we are used to, the damage they cause on our farms, on the environment. And we'll also be able to compare the advantages and the disadvantages of various developments in and around the farm. And our methodology still remains the same. We brainstorm together, we share together. And as time permits, we have a breakout session. And we also have the Zoom chat field. And please look carefully at this picture. I want to believe you can see it. Just look at it carefully. I will be saying 1 or 2 things about them. Now, if you look, this is a margin. You can see my cursor. This is a margin. So we have this part to the right, to the left, and we have this part to the right. So we look at this critically, and you can see a sheep. You can also see burning crop waste materials, mineralization, and adding potassium, adding K. K symbolizes potassium. You can also see where my cursor is here, fertilization, small quantities of unrecycled manure, synthetic chemical fertilizers. Now, what we are looking at here is this. These are activities that are taking place on the farm. These are possible activities that can take place on any farm. You can have the activity of animals on your farm, and they will be desertificating on the farm, maybe because they are feeding on the grass or on the crops there. They will desertificate alongside that activity, alongside the feeding. And you can also have the case of burning. When you are doing bush clearing, you gather your debris and you burn them. And you can also have the case of adding fertilizer on your farm, NPK, 0-15-15, 20-0-15, as the specification may be. These are all these activities on the farm. Now, look at what happens. Okay, there is another one here. Single crop farming. When you are engaging on monocropping, strictly monocropping, you can see a maize stand, nothing in between, single crop farming, and you will see soil depletion. So what happened is this: when all this activity take place, you can check under the line here, this line, check under the line, you will see that there is a compact soil poor in organic matter. All these activities, when they are taking place on the farm, the sheep are desertificating directly on the farm. You are adding your fertilizer to the farm directly. You are doing bush burning. You have a compact soil poor in organic matter. Another resultant effect is leaching materials. There is leaching mineral elements. We have the case of NPK, calcium, magnesium, and all other mineral materials. There is a leaching of them. And once there is leaching of them, there is little life in the soil because they are not decomposed, they are not blending with the soil. And what will happen is that the activities that are supposed to be taking place in the soil will not take place because the environment has already been modified to be unsuitable for the microfauna and those earthworms that we considered like 2 weeks ago. Then when all these activities are there, what happens with the monocropping you are doing? There will be few mineral available because monocropping, the crop is just there. There is no intercropping, nothing. There will be few minerals that will be available for that plant to have an uptake. Very few minerals. And that is what happened. Now let's go to the other phase, this particular place where my cursor is moving. Now you can have the case of miscropping here. Look at it. You can have a case of miscropping. This is tomato, as the case may be. This is like carrot. This is like vegetable. And you mix them together like that. You have variation in the elements withdrawn from the soil. Variation in the elements withdrawn from the soil. Then we have permanent plant cover for the soil. And what happens? We have maintained soil structure and fertility. Now, all of these things, without adding fertilizer, you can maintain soil structure and soil fertility when you do miscropping. That is what it means. Now, from the miscropping, you have the plantation of tree. Like I mentioned the other day when we took the trend last 2 weeks, when you encourage plantation of trees, this is what it does. You see, there is nutrient available after mineralization because there will be carbon content deposition from the debris of the tree, and they will decompose on the soil. And once they are decomposing inside the soil, you will have dynamic soil life, complementing the miscropping that you have done. And when it comes to the sheep, we all know what we refer to as composting. So once the sheep has defecated and you pack the defecates and you compose it and you now add it to the soil, you have good retention of minerals and water in the soil. And that is what happens. All of these things we have just discussed on this part that I'm moving my cursor. Make the soil, fertile and add value to biodiversity. It brings about biodiversity gain without using fertilizer, without using the manual, let me not call it manual now, direct addition of animal desiccates, physics to the soil. Your soil can still remain fertile without all of these things. So I'm going to move to the next, and then we are going to have layouts that promote biodiversity. Layouts that promote biodiversity. What are the layouts that we need to engage in and we are going to get biodiversity promoted? So at the end of this, participants will be able to identify the goals of making layouts, and secondly, provide examples of biodiversity friendly agricultural developments and practices. So I'm going to throw out a question now. Agriculture leads to destruction of natural habitats. I need us to just respond. Is it a yes or a no? Does agriculture lead to destruction of natural habitats? Is it yes or a no? You can unmute yourself and speak or send in your chat. So I'll be waiting to receive your chat now. We just have 3 minutes. Is anybody going first? Okay, David, can you go first, please? Does agriculture lead to destruction of natural environment? It's just a yes or no answer.
Yeah, it does.
Yes, you mean it is a yes, right?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay, what about Mammon? Does agriculture lead to destruction of natural habitat?
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, what about Matthew? Does agriculture lead to destruction of natural environment, natural habitat?
Yes, please, it does.
Ah, good. That's very, very good. Then the last but not the least, is anybody still there? Okay, somebody sent in a chart. Let me quickly read. Okay, Mama said yes. David said yes. So I believe I've exhausted everyone. Has everyone spoken? Allow me, can you check for me? Has anyone spoken? Okay, so the answer is yes. Agriculture leads to destruction of natural habitat, because when we are trying to expand our field, we are reducing the natural ecosystem to favor whatever we want to use it for. So it is a yes answer. And that is more reason why we must pay attention to becoming biodiversity smart. Okay, so I'm going to move to the next slide now. So layout that promote biodiversity. We have layout and cultivation practices, and those layout and cultivation practices must achieve some specific objectives. Any layout that you are going to choose on your farm at all must achieve 4 objectives. Whether you want to choose monocropping, or you want to, even though we have discouraged monocropping, we want to use mixed cropping, you want to use any kind of layout, maybe ridges, irrigation, anything at all, they must achieve 4 purposes. And number 1 is they must aim to preserve or restore the land and water resources of the plot and landscape. That layout must aim at preserving or restoring the land and water resources of the plot and the landscape. You know, we have different kinds of lands, and that is why different kinds of species of plants are growing there, because of the residual inherent composition of that land. Different kind of species of animals will be seen there. Different kind of plants will also be seen there. So when you are bringing about any layout on your farm, that layout must serve the purpose of preserving it. That land must also serve the purpose of restoring it. Take a look at a land that is slopy. A slopy land. And a slopy land is vulnerable to erosion. Yes, because there will be a downfall. The topsoil will be eroded because of the slopiness of the land. And you now decide to plant maize, strictly maize on that land. That maize will not do well, because by the time it rains on that land, it will wash out the topsoil. But if you decide to plant something like a potato or any other creeping crop, like a golden melon, like a watermelon, like cucumber, all of those things, what they do is that they will cover the soil, the topsoil. They will preserve erosion, and they will do well on that land, unlike when you use maize. So any layout you are going to do at all must serve the purpose of preserving and restoring the land and water resources of the land. The land I've just cited as an example too, because of the slopiness of the land, if you put any other thing that is different from cover crop, when the topsoil is washed away, the retention capacity of that soil to retain water is also affected because it is sloping. So any crop you are going to, and so I mean, once you are doing your ridges or you are doing your heaping, it should be against the erosion, rather than doing it along the erosion. It should rather be against the erosion, so that if at all what you are going to have, and you are going to have the washing away of the topsoil, the kind of ridges you are doing there or the kind of heap you are doing there will be a barricade for the top, for the erosion to take place. So that layout and cultivation practices must serve the preservation and restoring of land and water resources of the plant. And secondly, it must produce enough above ground and underground biomass and a large eco volume made up of varied cultivated plant species, just like the example I cited the other time. When you are embarking on the layout on your plot of land, you must remember that whatever plant you are planting must have the capacity to retain the microbe, the biomass in the soil. Leguminous plant does that a lot. Cover crops also do that a lot. And you can try to, you can also encourage a pre-season kind of cropping system that will make the retention, the micronutrient retention of the soil to be upgraded before you now plant simile crops that do not retain, that do not deposit nutrients in mass in the soil. Like take for instance, maize required nitrogen to emerge for the seedling stage and before it starts maturing. By the time it's maturing, the nitrogen requirement will be reduced. And if maize requires so much nitrogen to emerge, to come up before it reaches maturity, and there is no nitrogen in that soil, it is simple. Before the planting of the maize, cover crop or leguminous crop will have been planted on that land, which which nourishes the field with nitrogen, because they are naturally fixing nitrogen crops. It fixes nitrogen in the soil, and once it does that, once maize is coming on it, it enjoys the nitrogen that is required to become mature before maturity stage. So the third one is that ensure that layout and cultivation practice must ensure a large volume of high quality organic matter, which must be efficiently managed. So any layout at all must be such that ensure a large volume of high quality organic matter. And the third one, I mean, the last but not the least, which is the fourth one, is the kind of layout that seeks synergies between crops, trees, animals, insects, organisms, microorganisms, and etc. There must be a dynamic ecological connection on that field. So any crop you are going to plant that will not allow a dynamic ecological flow on that field, it should be discouraged. Any layout that will bar insect activities in as much as they are not becoming pests on the field, such should be discouraged. And those are the aims, those should be the aim of any layouts we are going to use on our various farms. So we move to the biodiversity-friendly agricultural developments and practices. We have discussed domesticated biodiversity on the farm, and we also mentioned wild biodiversity on the farm. For domesticated biodiversity on the farm, number one is crop allocation. In crop allocation, you decide the kind of crop you put in there based on the history of the land, based on the kind of crop that can grow in such land. And I will give you an instance. In Nigeria or in some part of the world, there are some crops that cannot grow. I will cite Nigeria as an instance. Nigeria does not grow apple. There is this foreign apple that is imported, not the local apple, so to say now. It cannot grow there because of the climatic condition in Nigeria. And there are some other crops that Kenya, Ghana, Ethiopia, Gambia, and other African countries do not cultivate because their climatic condition do not favor them. So if you now decide to plant that crop, it will not do well, even if it will grow at all. That might be a far example. Now, to a closer example, for a field that is deficient of nitrogen, and you decide to plant maize in it, that maize will not do well. So you have to be deliberate in putting a crop that will do well on that field based on the nutrient requirements and based on what that land also has as a deposit to support that plant. And that is what we allocate for that crop. Number two is intra-plot mixing. We have encouraged the use of mixed cropping, intercropping, intra-plot mixing. On your field, in your farm, you can decide to allocate maybe 20 meters to 80 meters for different kinds of vegetables. And beside it, another 20 meters to 80 meters, you allocate it for different kinds of fruits. And for that allocation, you have an intra-cropping. But on the whole scale of land, you have intercropping. You will have mixed the whole plant on a field. And I'll give you an instance. There is a vegetable called celosia. And there is also another vegetable we refer to as ocoporos. Now, if you plant celosia alone, celosia is vulnerable to pest attack. By the time it's reaching maturity, insects attack that plant and they finish the green leaves on the plant. The vegetable job is standing with a stem, nothing, no leaf, everything is defoliated. But if you mix it with the other vegetable, the attack, it will make it less vulnerable to insect attack. That is what intra-plot mixing will do for you. So we move on to rotation. We are still under domesticated biodiversity. We move on to rotation. It is not compulsory that the crop you plant on the particular piece of land in the last 3 months is still the same thing you repeat. It will not promote biodiversity because one, the nutrient requirement of that crop is still the same. and the plot on which you planted it also is already deficient of the nutrient because it has already taken the nutrient when you planted it. All right, may I know if you can see my screen?
Yes, please.
Right. All right. Yeah, I was discussing rotation. So I was trying to explain that you rotate the kind of crop you cultivate on your farm. If you are planting cassava in the last 1 year, if you want to replant on that same plot, you do not plant cassava because the nutrient requirement for that cassava to germinate will no longer be on that piece of land that you are going to put it on it. You put another crop that can replenish that deficient plot of land. And we also encourage cash crop. Many of us in our various countries, we have crops that we export. We have cocoa as the case of Nigeria. We have, we can also, we have coffee. So many of the African countries have different cash crop they export. So we encourage that we plant them as much as possible, and it will become biodiversity friendly to us all. Then we move on to wild biodiversity on the farm. Like I rightly mentioned 2 weeks ago, that you have little or no control on wild biodiversity because you do not cultivate there, but we deliberately leave them so that they can support the ecosystem. So in wild biodiversity, those things you can do to become biodiversity friendly is flower strips. That we explain as time goes on because we have pictures to depict them. We also have grass cover of perennial crops. It's just the same thing as planting cover crops. So in this case, it is a grass cover. Then we also have choice of plant protection products. You can decide to cultivate a kind of tree, and as the case may be, it could be a neem that we all know to be Achadratal indica. It can be a neem. A neem is a very, very good plant that you can that is biodiversity friendly. You can plant them and make a wild from it. So there is also the light soil work. In the wild, everything there is settled, everything there is compliant with what with the animals and living things that are there in the wild. So if you must work there at all, it must be a light soil work. And the last but not the least is permanent crop cover. In order to protect the wild, you must cultivate the habit of putting a permanent crop cover in them. They normally grow, but when animals, there are cases whereby animals migrate from one region to the other, and they take the wild, they move in between the wild to the other side where they are migrating to, maybe because of food or water. They march on those plants, and what happened to them is that those plants die. So we should encourage cultivating them again, and in this case, it has to be permanent crop cover. So I move on to the next. The summary of what we have just discussed now is a diversified agriculture which combines cultivation, uses legumes, ensures permanent land cover, encourages grassland, and contributes to the enhancement of biodiversity. That is all we have just discussed. So we move on to sequence 2, which is how to improve domesticated biodiversity on the farm. How do we improve them? We have already mentioned those things we can do to support biodiversity on a domesticated farm. So how do we improve on them? So at the end of this sequence, we'll be able to combine livestock farming with production system, no spatial crop techniques, and temporal crop layout techniques. Now, combining livestock farming with production system, what readily comes to mind? When you are combining agriculture and livestock farming, what readily comes to mind? Combining agricultural and livestock farming will add value to interactions between them. And how does that take place? Let's cite an instance. A piece of land where you cultivate animal husbandry. You rear animals there. That is where the animals eat. That is where they defecate. You don't move them about. And you also have a piece of land where you do cropping system. Now, you can migrate the animals. Once you want to feed them, you don't want to feed them with maybe the animal feeds. You move the animals towards the field. They feed on the farm, on the selected crops you planted for them to feed upon. They feed on them and you move them back to where they belong. You allow that field to settle, rainy season, dry season, the desertification, the moving on the land till the land a little, and it makes the soil structure to be improved. And there will be mineralization of minerals, the macronutrient that will be mineralization of all of them. So, and what happened to that land? It improves the fertility of the land. And that is why we say, when you combine agriculture and livestock farming, it improves the interaction between them. Now, what I personally do is this. I'm into poultry farming. I pack the poultry droppings. I pack them together. I compost them, and I use them on the land that I'm planting the vegetables. The vegetable remains green, and they mature in due time, rather than adding fertilizer to it. Even if I want to add fertilizer, I will need to go and buy fertilizer. So that is saving my cost, and I'm also adding value to the biodiversity. So that is the way it works. So we encourage that as a farmer, have a bit of livestock farming, so that you can be using the dungs and the poultry droppings as a source of manure to fertilize your land. That is what we normally encourage. And we also noted that adding value to crop residue by using them to feed cattle. The normal crop debris and residues that we pack together and burn, instead of burning them, we use them to feed the animals. When you grow vegetables, at a particular point in time, some vegetables will become unharvestable because they are becoming hard, and when you cook them, they will not get softened in time. Animals can feed on them, and that is the way it works. It will save cost of buying feed for them. It will also save cost of it will save the it has a way of improving the nutrients in the body of these animals, because actually animal fed with feeds and animal fed with plants, they have different nutrient composition. The animal fed with plants is always better than the one fed with feeds. And we also mentioned that adding value to animal physics by using it to fertilize the soil and feed plants. That is just, I just explained when I was citing the instance of feeding, using poultry drums to fertilize vegetable land. And all of these put together, we refer to them as agropastoral system, which can recycle nutrients in the soil, thereby sustainably manage its fertility. When you combine livestock farming and agricultural production together, agriculture production combined with livestock farming, you have what we refer to as agropastoral system, and what that does is that it recycles the nutrients in your soil and it makes it very, very fertile. So to the next one now, we have agropastoral system practices. There is nothing that has advantage that does not have disadvantage. Number one advantage of agropastoral system is that manure is produced. You use plow system. Yes, that is the way it is. We have to apply them. It's plowing system. It's plow farming. Then you strengthen erosion control. Erosion will be controlled when you use agropastoral system practice. And household food security is also strengthened, just like what I said about my poultry and my vegetable farm. You have food security because you don't have to spend much. However, the disadvantage is that it requires more labor. By the time I pack the poultry dungs, the droppings, and I'm applying them on the land, it's labor. It is actually labor. So it also required manpower. When I need to do it myself, of course, I know what it takes. And if I have to do it, if I have to contract it out, I pay. So it requires manpower. However, it poses a sanitary risk. Sometimes when I'm away and I do not have time to pack the poultry dungs, that place mess. And that is sanitary risk. So that is one of the disadvantages. And also, it requires a good recycling plan for waste. If you don't have a way of disposing, managing all these dumps, all these droppings, you won't enjoy what it has to give. So it requires a good recycling plan. So to partial crop layout techniques now, it entails good crop allocation, I've explained, at farm level and crop allocation at the plot level. And the advantage of spatial crop layout techniques, it fights against plant diseases. When you do a spatial crop layout, you have a fight against plant diseases, rotational use of soil elements. There will be some time that the crop you are planting will require nitrogen in the case of maize, and there will be some time that the crop you are planting will require phosphorus. So it will not be that every plant you are planting, every crop you are planting will require the same nutrient. The land will deplenish very fast. So the advantage of spatial crop layout, that is what it gives to you, rotational use of soil elements. It prevents erosion. Any kind of land could be vulnerable to erosion if it is not well managed. But managing it better, you can use spatial crop layout. And the last but not the least advantage is it adds value to the soil, just as I've explained. The disadvantage is that they can be difficult to meet sowing dates. That is just a fact. It can be difficult to meet sowing dates. When you have to be sowing on different times, maybe you are planting maize now, and because maize have the same gestation period or maturity period with sorghum, so to say, it can be difficult to meet it. Then it can be difficult to apply certain fertilizers. When you are on spatial crop layout, some certain fertilizer, we discussed IPM, integrated pest management. If you must use fertilizer at all, this partial crop layout will discourage it. And we also talk about management of plot irrigation, which is, it will be more difficult to make use of when we talk about spatial crop layout. So this is a spatial crop layout techniques. You can see we have a tree, we have the crop. What I have by the side of the picture is that tropical agroforestry in Indonesia, Eastern Java, during the dry season, rice paddies are farmed for vegetables with combined garbage and bean crops under coconut trees. You can see the coconut trees, you can see the rice, even though, but let me move my cursor. This light green is garbage. This deeper green, this painting green is garbage. This bright green is the rice, and you can look at it like that with the coconut tree. Now, what coconut serve here is that even when, if there are droppings from the coconut trees, it nourishes the soil, but it also serves as a bit of shade, not total shade, because they will all require sun for photosynthesis. But there is this cover that will not allow direct sunlight to hinge, to hinge on the plant. And that is what we refer to as partial crop layout technique. Now, if you look at the way the layout is, If you are going to apply chemical here, fertilizer as the case may be, you have to be very careful, because the nutrient requirement of all of these crops are different. Some of them will require much of nitrogen, some will require less of nitrogen, some will require much of phosphorus, some will require less of phosphorus, and you only apply you apply the fertilizer at a go. The fertilizer you apply will serve the purpose of nourishing the soil, and the soil that has been nourished will only be, the plant will have their uptake from the soil. So imagine the crop that does not require nitrogen taking up nitrogen. That will be chlorosis, that will be disease, that will be vulnerability to pests and diseases. So that is why some of these things, you cannot practice everything when it comes to spatial crop layout. So we'll go to temporal crop layout techniques. And it is stated that it entails a well-planned crop rotation or with cash crop. We encourage that as farmers, as professional farmers, we should do more of planting as much of cash crop as possible. So advantage is production of staggered over time. Production is like staggered over time. I don't mean production is staggered over time. Now, what do we mean by production is staggered over time? In temporal crop layout, we established that it is seasonal. That is one that work with dry season, that is the other one that work with wet season. The crop that you cultivate during dry season cannot survive during wet season, even if you do irrigation during the dry season. The one you irrigate will be different from the one that is rain-fed. So when you go into temporal crop layout, production will surely be staggered because the crop you are engaging in are seasonal. Then we have revenue are diversified. Just like the example I mentioned, during rainy season, rain-fed crops bring about sometimes yield. But irrigated crop, even if the yield is much, you input much more energy cost into it to make it to be much. And therefore, any crop you are going to bring about from irrigated farming will be expensive. So that is why we establish that revenue will be diversified. Then value of soil element is increased. The value of soil elements will surely be increased. Just like we mentioned the other time, that if crop are seasonal, the crop that we are cultivating are seasonal when it comes to temporal crop layout. The rainy season that make crops to be much, will definitely affect the soil. The deposit of nutrient that will be in the soil will also be much. And the dry season will have the same too. So the value of soil element will also increase in the case of rainy season. So, and the fourth one, concentration of parasites are limited. As we have explained, parasites in this sense will be limited because it's not the same crop you are planting all through. It will be limited. Now, disadvantages include in-depth knowledge of plants and interaction is required. You need to know everything about the crop before you embark on temporal crop layout. The crop that you cultivate during rainy season, if you go and cultivate it during dry season, you must know the water requirements, you must know the retention capacity of water. Those are the things you have to put into consideration, and you need to know when you need to get them harvested, when you need to get them weed. The plant, the weed on the field. You need to know when you apply your weeding, because if you apply it in the wrong time, it will affect the crop. You also need to understand the climate. Just as I explained during dry season and wet season, you need to understand the climate that supports each crop. There are some crops that you can is better cultivated during rainy season. You can do it during dry season, it will be more expensive, but it is better cultivated during rainy season. Then workload may increase. That's just the way it is. The workload, what you are going to do to make it successful will increase. Then the last but not the least is difficult to implement on small surface area. If you want to attempt doing it on small surface area, you are going to incur much money. So that is the way that is. So I'm going to move to the next slide now. And the next slide is that you highlight other ways by which agro-pastoral system improves biodiversity. I've mentioned as many advantages of agro-pastoral system, but if you check the attempt at the questions you are supposed to attempt, the quiz, you will see some of these questions there, and it is good that you just do them. These ones you can Google it and you get to know more about them. We're supposed to discuss it, but as I'm going along, you can send in your inputs and we'll begin to discuss it. At this point, I want us to have a 5 minutes break. This is 12 minutes after the dot of time. So we're going to return at 11 minutes after the dot of time. Am I still audible? Can you all hear me, please? You can unmute yourself and respond.
Yes, I am.
All right, please. We are going on 5 minutes break, please.
Okay, so I'll pause the recording.
Please go ahead. All right, let me welcome everyone back on board. Ibrahim, are you there?
Yes.
Good to know you are there. What about David? Is David there?
Yes, I am.
Good to know you are there. What about Mammon? Is Mammon there? Mammon, are you there? Okay, what about Matthew? Is Matthew there?
Yes, please.
Yeah, it's good to know you are there. Is Mammon there? Mammon is back. Mammon, are you there? Okay, I want to believe you can all see my screen. If you can see my screen, please respond. You can move and respond.
Yes, I can see.
Oh, good, good. So the question on the screen is that highlight other ways by which agro-pastoral system improves biodiversity. So I want us to just mention one or two, and then we'll discuss, and that will be I will do the summary, and we will end from my side here, and I'll hand over to allow me. So Matthew, if you can hear me, can you just give us one advantage, one way by which agricultural system, agro-pastoral system improves biodiversity? Just in 30 seconds, just give us one that we can just learn from. Okay.
Okay. You have already spoken about agro-pastoral. One other way I would also think of is the dispersal. When you are growing the animals or livestock with the crops on the field, they help in the seed dispersal, and which actually helps in especially the wild species. Normally, we the human being wouldn't like to pick a wild species seeds and plant it somewhere because we see it not to be necessary.
Okay.
So normally the animals, as they walk around, some might have picked on their hoofs, some might have fallen on their hair, and then they would disperse it somewhere. In that way, it still continues to help in maintaining the wild species within your farm.
That's fantastic. That's very correct. That's very, very correct. So they carry the seed and they dispense it everywhere. That's good. So over to you, David. Can you mention one way by which agro-pastoral system improve biodiversity, please?
I think we also use animals as labor to provide labor in the farm.
Okay.
Some people use cattle to do plowing.
That's true.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That is also the way it encourages, it improves biodiversity, provided that they do not overwork on the farm. Okay, is Mama there? Can Mama mention one?
Mama has written on.
Okay, it's written good. Can you read what he read? Can you read what?
We said that Yeah. Diversification of income, enhance soil nutrition through the incorporation of animals' manure, which feed on crop residues. It enhances biodiversity as not only crops for human consumption are cultivated, but further crops may also be grown.
Okay, okay, that's encouraging too.
Ibrahim says that it helps soil structure and texture and also weed control.
Oh, that's fantastic. So it means we are on the same page. So we all believe in agricultural system, and we all admit that it has a way, or it has many ways of improving biodiversity. So I'm going to summarize now, and we'll come to the end of today's session of training. Now, to the summary of what I've been discussing over time, said domestic biodiversity contributes to the simultaneous intensification of agricultural and livestock production. The valorization of animal excreta to increase soil fertility and crop residues that can be used as fodder. And those are the things we all mentioned. All of us mentioned all of these things. And at this point, I want to encourage all of us to get all of these things implemented. If not on the large scale, we can start practicing on the small scale. It is what you have experienced that you are going to discharge, and people will embrace it. It starts from you first. So on this note, I want to end today's module to continue and put it to a close on Thursday. Thank you very much for your attention, and over to you, allow me while I share my screen. Allow me, over to you. Is allow me there? Okay.
Hello.
Yes, Matthew, you want to say something?
I see too.
Okay, so it seems we allow me is not coming up now. Okay, so permit me to, okay, allow me.
Hello, Ayo.
All right, so over to you, please.
Okay, thank you, Ayo, for today's session. And we quickly are going to look at what activities that we need to do this week. What are the different activities that we are supposed to do? So permit me to share my screen and go to the e-learning page. Okay, we are the e-learning page right now. And if you see from the e-learning page, we can see boldly that, oh, sorry, the network. Just 1 minute, need to put my password back. Okay. So we are already in week 4. And I want to believe that we've assignments and tests and mini quiz, like I said, on the e-learning platform. The rest we can take our time to read the course material. We can download the PowerPoint presentation, and then later we can look at them. We can download the videos and look at them at a convenient time. But the mini quiz, the assignments, and then the test your knowledge is so important for our grading. And like I shared with us before, if I click on this, you see all the grades once you do a test or once you do, and then it brings us to a total person is supposed to score. So at the end of the 4 weeks, we must have an average of what the person is supposed to score here. And that gives CP the authority to be able to issue the certificates and ask us to deliver the certificate to us. So I'm pleading that this week, as many that have not been able to do their assignments, kindly please finish up, and then we mark it and send them back to you.
Hi.
Sorry. So sorry, I'm muting because I'm having some background noise from there. So if you go now to week 4, so in week 4 now we have 3 assignments. And it would be nice if you start this assignments today, because by the end of the week, it's already going to be, by Thursday, it's going to be late. So this is the assignment. We have 3 assignments to do this week, and these are the assignments. They are very, very simple. Can you see it on my screen? Can you see a Word document on my screen?
Yes.
Yes. So distinguish between measures that enhances wild biodiversity and those that enhances domestic biodiversity. That's what the question is all about. So it's a straight forward answer from all that we have, discussed from the past 4 weeks. And I hope that we'll be able to do all these assignments, and then we'll able to deliver them before the end of the week. So on this note, I want to say a big thank you to everyone that came on board today. And we want to know if there are any challenges, because I can see that some of us have not done our assignments. Are there challenges? We want to hear from you what the challenges are. What are the challenges that we are facing? Are there challenges that we are facing?
Let me call Mammon. Mammon, is Mammon there? Is Mammon there, please? No, Mammon is not there. Is Mammon there?
Yes.
All right, Mammon.
What's there?
Oh, good. What can we do to help you do your assignment? How can we help you?
My challenges are mainly connection.
Okay. All right. What if we send the assignment to you on WhatsApp? Can you do them and send back to us?
Yeah, that would be great.
You said?
I said that would be great.
All right.
Assignments.
Okay, so we are going to do them. We are going to compile the assignment. I'm going to send it to you on WhatsApp today. So you can do them and send back to us on WhatsApp. We'll upload it for you.
Thank you.
Okay. So we
But
will
the
also
test, sorry, Ayo, but the test we cannot send to them, and the mini quiz.
No.
So those two, you have to do it on the e-learning platform, please.
Yeah, I've seen that. I copy them. I went to do them, but I couldn't download.
Okay. All right.
Okay. The same thing goes for every other person that have not attended the assignment. You do the quiz. At least that one will not take much time being online. But the one that can take time being online, we can send it to you. You can do them. Then you send it back to us. We'll assist you to upload. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. And yes, we'll go through the approach. We'll send all the assignments to everybody, and then write to them that they can send it back to us, and then we upload, and then we mark it and put the grade there before the end of the week. But the mini quiz and the test, please go online and do them. The mini quiz are always 5 questions, and the test your knowledge is there are 10 questions. So in 20 minutes, you'll be done with all those questions. Thank you for your time today, and thank you for coming online. So we see again on Thursday, and by Thursday, we'll be rounding up the entire 4-week course, and hope to see you by then, and hope that we pray that everybody will be able to come online, and then we're able to take a group picture on Thursday. Thank you very much, and bye-bye for now from me, and over to you, Ayo.
All right, let me also appreciate you all for coming. We expect to see everyone on Thursday, like Lamin said. So bye for me too. We wish you a lovely day.